conversation there. Oh, looks like we lost Sierra again. William's here. Thank you. All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
All right. So hopefully you should be able to kind of see this convoluted screen that we have here. You should be able to see me, and good. And soon you'll see Tim as Inspector Gadget flying around the screen. And then later on, we'll probably bring Sierra back on, but looks like she may be having internet issues. So, William, thank you for coming on. My business partner, Tim, is on the other side there. And like I said, we do this thing where we call Tagged by Ceox. We just reach out to people that we've sort of met online who really seem to know what's going on and have an honest perspective, about blockchain, metaverse, and really, trying to bring together what is seemingly this world of fantasy that's happening at warp speed in reality.
If you had told me a few decades ago that I would be able to literally sustain my entire family life by playing video games, I would have called you a bald-faced liar.
It's nuts.
So fantasy is the apt term for description.
It is really. Now, so a little bit of background. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and walk through that. Like, what was that progression? Because what I've seen online, this hasn't been like if you didn't start this a decade ago, you didn't start it 20 years ago. Like, you started yesterday, not literally, but what's your story?
Well, a lifetime of wasting my time spending video games turned out to be training to be a virtuoso of the play to earn genre. A few years ago, there was a new genre invented in video games called free to play. And it was sort of a model breaking suggestion to the industry, because up until that point, you sold your product. There was no reason to give away the product. That didn't make sense. Until they realized that if they gave you the product, then it was already in your pocket, and then you might find extra ways to spend money on the product. Then they weighed the pros and cons and realized that they were making so much more off of this DLC or downloadable content that it was so much more valuable to simply give the customer the game. Now you have titans like Fortnite literally raking in tens of millions of dollars a year from passive income from players that are just already there enjoying their game. They put a lot of time and effort into it, but the next logical step, which I kind of had a little bit of a premonition of quite a few months ago, was this play to earn. As soon as I heard about it, it sort of thunderstruck me. And I realized that it was the other side of the coin. It was the logical next step.
Sure.
Instead of slipping the free stuff into their pockets, why not simply reward them for their time, and you guarantee they'll never leave? People
Absolutely.
are...
I think that's really a great perspective on this, right? Because truly something that's free lacks how do I want to say it this way? Something that's valuable enough to be free is valuable enough to be paid for. And it's not necessarily intuitive, but truly in a marketplace where we are today, where utility has greatest value, but the actual cost of, let's call it, development and distribution is being brought down so low because of technology, if you will, the singularity of all things coming together, that we need to start figuring out, not only I'm done being paid to develop, I now need to have people, I need to pay people to contribute to the greater development, which is the community, not just the game.
Exactly. And so now we are standing on the verge of a renaissance. I personally believe that in the next 5 years, we will see more jobs available than humans have ever existed in history.
Yep.
Let that statement sink in. We will see jobs spring up in the metaverse I can't imagine. Slaying a dragon will be something that you can put your kid through college doing.
Yes.
Forging swords. Being a virtual real estate agent, selling places that don't exist.
And we just talked about the whole virtual land thing. I want to get into that, but let's kind of talk about why that would actually be a job and make it real simple. Because only about, we'll say 20%, but I think it's closer to 18%. But let's say 20% of the Americans have actually used any sort of cryptocurrency, out of that 20%, like none, let's just say 20% of that 20% actually has a clue what blockchain is, which is driving this cryptocurrency, because most of the people don't really, they think cryptocurrency is a stock. They completely miss it. And, so we're only talking about 1 to 2% of the people who have a comprehension of what's actually going on right now. And those people will be paid just like a real estate agent to help people acquire space in the metaverse, because they will understand it. And it's not a hard concept to grasp. It's just hard to concept because it's all, Tim had a great word earlier, it's all part of unreality, right? It's not reality, but it is.
Yeah. The concept of the metaverse is something that's existed for quite a while. I believe there was a science fiction writer that wrote a book called Snow Crash that coined the phrase originally. But as we societally understand a metaverse, it isn't a single place, not yet. We don't quite have the bridges and the technology for it. Right now, we're looking at what's a series of metaverses, multiple. So I guess a multiverse of metaverses, but eventually technology will catch up and we'll bridge them all together and we'll see a single unreality like you've described it, which I do like the phrase. But ultimately, yeah, if you look back as far as 1996, a game was released on PC called The Realm Online. That is the first instance of what we know as an MMO. That means massive multiplayer online game. That's a persistent world where even when you turned your game off, the buildings stayed there. The other players could stay on for as long as they wanted, and everybody played together. There was an agreed upon currency, and everyone had like a marketplace and did adventures and earned items and stuff like that. That was, in effect, a metaverse all the way back then, but it's what's called a walled garden. You see, back then, and even up until just recently, we were reliant on Web 2. Web 2 only allowed for interaction with the assets. It did not allow for ownership of the assets. Now, through blockchain technology with Web 3, the metaverse is a place where you can actually own the thing that you've put your time into. Now, let's go to something a little bit more colloquially known, like World of Warcraft. That's a game that had 15 million players at one point consecutively all the time playing. So it was something that was extremely popular and a lot of people understand it. So they can kind of understand a persistent world, and they can kind of understand that it's not going to go away when they go away. But they also might not understand that the 1,000 hours that they invested into playing that game and having those adventures and finally achieving the one achievement that they absolutely wanted. Let's say it's the sword of the gods, and they got that sword and they earned it with their time, their hard work and time. Well, multiple things can happen that completely, absolutely remove all effort that they've done. For instance, they could be banned, then they've lost all that time they've invested. They could be literally have the developers take the sword from their inventory because they control it. That's their property. They're only renting it by getting to play the game. Lastly, all games servers online do come to an end. They will shut them down at some point, which means that even in that scenario where it's not taken from them or they're not banned, they're still going to lose it when the servers get shut down. But with blockchain technology, and more specifically now with NFTs, you can take that item out of the game and it's yours. You can choose to sell it. You can loan it out. You can leverage equity against it. You can do all kind of things, all the way up to transplanting it into a different metaverse and using it there too, or displaying it in your virtual home. So it sort of gives agency to players.
I think that's it right there. It actually gives agency to the players. I that's exactly right. One of the things that I'm sure you've heard this, and I'd like to hear your answer to it. But a lot of people would say, okay, like that sword of the gods there, like, come on, it's just a video game thing. Like, really, what kind of value is there to that thing? Like, who's right? So, yeah, I figured you've heard this. Run with that question.
Good question. Good question. Well, you really do serve them off excellent. Okay, so the very first digital currency ever bought or sold, you guys are familiar with it, right?
Gold was the first that I understand was created. Bitcoin was going to be the first that
Oh,
transacted it
no. That's
commercially.
almost a decade past what I'm talking about.
Okay.
See, the first cryptocurrency, I guess you could call it that. I mean, technically it wasn't built on the blockchain, but the first digital currency ever bought or sold was gold in EverQuest, all the way back in 1999. Now, that's the first instance of it. I've heard stories told, but cannot find receipts from the transactions of gold having been sold all the way back in the realm online in 96. But
So would
for
that have
sure,
been part of BitGold?
no,
Was that
no,
no? Okay.
no. This predates that by a good number of years.
Oh, interesting.
Bitcoin is often seen as the first digital currency bought or sold, but it was not. You see, there was a desire in humans to buy and own their digital assets from the instant technology taught us that they existed. From the moment that the sword of the gods was even a possibility, there was players who were willing to invest their time and skill to harvest these assets from the game, then go out of the game and make against terms of service agreements on eBay to sell these items. Now the technology has caught up to us, to that desire that has always existed. So where you wonder where that value comes from, I posit to you, what is the value of a Rolex beyond a timepiece that simply is a flex?
That
Now,
literally.
I own a pair of $1,000 diamond hand NFT, a piece of equipment in a VR play to earn game that I play called Revomon. When I wear them, I personally would never wear jewelry or a Rolex because that's just a little gaudy to me. I mean, to each their own, but that's just not for me. I wouldn't really understand the purpose. But when I wear those diamond hands in the game and the other players see those and respect those and like, whoa, those are the diamond hands, I feel like royalty. And a Rolex isn't going to get me a monthly airdrop for a $500 NFT every month for the foreseeable future, or bypass my need to buy an additional 5,000 tokens, or give me boosted DAO voting rights. That's a decentralized autonomous organization where I get the say in certain things that the game even gets to do in the future. So, I mean, to me, it seems like a much more logical investment than a lot of the things that people would buy in the real world.
So now I think what you just said, we should probably cut up, package, and go ahead and let the world hear that. In our earlier segment, one of the things we were talking about was sort of how fashion is going to play a role in creating your identities in the metaverse. And we use the exact example of the Rolex, where for years, people didn't buy a Rolex because it told time, right? And if they wanted something waterproof, they could find something else, a Swatch watch for $39 that told time is waterproof. So there is that status that came with Rolex, and and right, exactly as you say, to each their own. But the world is changing, and geeks unite, let's raise up and say, like, yeah, I mean, having these things online that mean something to others is actually more valuable than that Rolex at this point in time. And what a lot of people don't understand when we say, in the words of a DAO, and that's kind of when my daughter comes back on, I kind of do want to talk about the idea of the importance of creating a good, healthy culture inside of a DAO. And you're already beginning to speak it, which is to say that other people who you're interacting with actually recognize a digital asset that has a meaning to them. And in that meaning, I think you just hit on it. It says something like, I actually have the right to vote on how this game gets played. And I understand that a lot of people listening may not get the idea that that's important, except for in our world, we say all the time that fiat currency is nothing but a game that we don't get to participate in the rule making of. Right. So once we actually,
beautiful analogy,
right? Like once we actually get to participate in creating the rules of our monetary future, it's not just gaming. It's actually being a human interacting with others who actually sort of understand values that maybe not everybody else does. And that's truly where transactions have real honest value versus just a status symbol. Right? It's actually a representation of value greater than status, which is a whole new way of thinking. And unfortunately, I mean, I think that we probably thought that way as people maybe as late as the 1950s. But, you know, back in the day, it was like I valued that thing which had utility and kept my family alive. And then I suppose at some point in time, we valued that thing which had utility and entertained me. And that was okay. But now we have these things which have very little utility and just consume us. And now we're turning around going, now I have a thing that has utility that allows me to shape the future. And that's a big deal. That's a very big deal.
Absolutely, it grants you agency. It stops being a game when you have skin in the game. When you're a part of it, then it is you, and you represent it as such, and you treat it as such.
So how did you become or go from being a gamer to becoming a developer?
Oh, that is a bit of a bit of a story. I'll give you the truncated version and simply say that I was lucky, and I was dedicated to creation. I spent a long time doing jobs that put me by myself and gave me a lot of time to think and internalize. And I decided that I've always been an entertainer. I kind of came up as an actor and decided that that wasn't really for me. I don't like the politics and weird stuff that's involved. So I just kind of shied away from it. But I love to entertain and I love to present something that everyone can digest and enjoy and get something from. And so when I heard about Beeple having sold that NFT back in, I think he sold it on the 16th of February, and I heard the story on the 17th of February. And that night, I taught myself to mint NFTs, and then I thought to myself, okay, what's next? And so I sat there and sort of played a thought exercise through of what things would happen that followed. And once it occurred to me that game assets could be made into NFTs and you could own them, then it occurred to me that the door would become open for literally any combination of human thought process to merchandise, literally any service, any item. And we're already starting to see it now. There's a game that's fairly popular called the Sandbox. And I'm aware of some people who have the ability to ferry people to places. They have a vehicle that can take people from point A to point B. Well, when you enter the game, you don't necessarily enter wherever you want. And there's not any kind of fast transportation system like teleportation or flight. You just have to walk. And the game is large enough that walking to a certain spot might take minutes or even hours. So ultimately, what it boils down to is when they have virtual concerts where a very famous artist is going to be performing in that particular metaverse, and people have bought a ticket and show up at the place where they're allowed to enter through the game. Think of it as the entryway of the game. Well, they're not going to be able to walk there in time. They need a ride. Well, guess what? The people who have been playing this game and have gotten themselves a vehicle now become a taxi service. And that is an existing thing right now in the metaverse. There is taxi services. I personally own and operate a virtual real estate firm within a game called The Uplift, where I have a team of artists and architects that actually build. Right now, we're currently building an art gallery for a prominent NFT art couple called Joshua and Heidi Gilman. And we're going to have like a world premiere launch for the gallery and a whole opening night and stuff. The devs are going to actually open the entire server to all players to come in and check it out. It's going to be a whole thing. But ultimately, what it boils down to is that's just the tip of the iceberg. We at one point, my team members would literally sit at the place where the players would spawn into the game on like a survival world where you're going to have to be looking out for monsters attacking you and stuff like that. But we would post up with swords, weapons, food, armor, and a horse. And whoever came in, we'd offer them, hey, for a couple of wax, that's the native currency within the game. We'll transport you to your place safely. We'll give you some gear, some food. We'll make sure you got a comfy ride. You can just hop on this horse and we'll carry it by its tether and then walk you all the way to your location. Like
So
literally a non-adult escort service.
I want to, for anybody who's like might be listening that really still doesn't get this metaverse. We've tried to show a couple pictures. We showed like a map of some of the Sandbox and that piece of it. But what I want people to kind of think about what you just talked about, not necessarily today, but literally in perhaps as short as 3 years, but let's say 5 years or maybe even 7 years. you won't necessarily turn on the Lord of the Rings and watch it on Netflix. You will actually enter in through your Oculus, whatever VR goggles you're going to wear, and you're going to show up right in whatever land, and Legolas or whoever is going to show up on their horses, like you're saying, and they're going to guide you safely to this concert. Now, obviously, I'm using the Lord of the Rings just because it's, again, that very fantasy thing, and I hope people can kind of get the idea that literally what we're talking about here are lands, are virtual lands that will be anything that you could imagine them to be. And exactly what William's talking about here is you're literally going to have an escort so that you can make it to your concert that night. And on the way to the concert, you're going to be so many adventures that are planned for you. And, this will be your night out. Now, you might be doing it right from your home, but make no mistake that we're also going to have these kind of retail restaurant outlets where you're going to be able to go and hang out with people who are participating in the same meta reality. So you're actually doing it with the people who you're with. You're laughing, you're enjoying it. It's relatively harmless. And that's a hope that there's a whole world that we have to figure out, like how to make these metaverses less harmful, because they're certainly open to harm, but just allowing ourselves to enjoy what you just said. Not only these are fully immersive worlds that we get to create. We get to be Hollywood in many ways, and just kind of let's make our own thing and then kind of do this together. And I think you're already, if I'm not mistaken, I saw you actually have some people designing some metaverses now. Is that the gallery that you were just talking about?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's one thing we've got that we're working on. Um, excuse me. I'm currently in the process of just feeling out as many different metaverses and play to earn games to see what can be done. Initially, I sat down in front of a marker board with my team and we just spitballed the craziest possible things we could ever think of. And I mean, it covered the whole board, like top to bottom, side to side. And what we realized was that we couldn't find a bottom of the barrel. This rabbit hole just continues.
Right.
So yeah, currently the gallery that we're working on in the Uplift is one of our major projects, but we have our hands in quite a few different projects that we're trying to launch, including upcoming in a game called Mirandus. Mirandus is pretty unique because there's sort of shops for everything. Like there's guild halls and beginner adventurer halls and ports that you can own, like seaports. You can own parcels of land, farms, blacksmiths. I mean, like the potential for in-game jobs is staggering.
And now, when you're building these, do you have to? Are you building the data infrastructure as well as the visual artifacts? Are you building all of it? Are you using like an Unreal Engine to build it? Tell me about that process?
That is the key to greatness, is the fact that I have no computer talents whatsoever. It is entirely through my gaming skills that I'm able to be so adept at what I do. Now, I can absolutely concede that if I could program a game, then I would definitely be a step ahead. But ultimately, all of these games are built to accommodate the common user. They want everybody to be able to come in and to be able to craft these items in the game with simple gameplay mechanics that are just already built right into the user interface of the experience. They don't want you to have to go through a couple of years of college or a whole course to learn this programming language. Instead, they just want you to be able to hold a controller or use a keyboard. That is like this
Wow.
the sum total of the preparation that I had for this. It really was years of gameplay that put me in the position that I am now.
So let's kind of talk about this, and I'm going to bring Sierra in. William, meet Sierra. Sierra is my daughter, and a little background on Sierra.
Nice
Sierra
to meet you,
is
Sierra.
an absolute Buffalo Bills fan nut. So what we do every week on Ceox is we actually kind
Go
of
Bills.
we kind of talk about like kind of what it means to be a championship team, like that they're not exactly being right now, but we use the NFL to kind of talk about how to build strong organizations together. And as we talk about the idea of creating these metaverses, and more particularly, you mentioned the DAOs earlier, the distributed autonomous organization. And, we say that word time and time again because I'm hoping people will actually take the words and hear them. Distributed, some people will say decentralized, just basically hear it as distributed autonomous organization. In other words, everybody, it's sort of a all man, all woman for themselves. It's everybody for themselves, but they have to come together to actually create something of greater value. And when we have a game, there's a mission, there's an objective, and we're all trying to doing that. But when we're trying to create economies and let's say develop land like we're seeing in the sandbox, and we actually do have to create communities that and truly it's in the creation of the communities that's going to create the real health that's involved. But unlike the world that we live in today where there is top-down leadership, this really has to be sort of like each individual willing and ready to contribute for a cause, for kind of the betterment of all. So what about gaming would you say, or what in gaming do you think has helped prepare people to really work together in this very independent nature? And it is working.
Is that to me?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no, you're fine. Honestly, it could not have been a better pairing, because literally the necessity of a gamer, especially in a multiplayer context. Now, there is some competitive multiplayer, but even in the competitive multiplayer, more often than not, it is a very rare bird for you to see a game that has a 1 versus 1 mechanic. Usually it's a team versus a team, or even sometimes three players to a squad, but against multiple other teams. Ultimately, what we're taught from the moment we pick up a controller is it's easier if you've got a teammate. You're going to get farther. You're going to do more. As far back as Super Mario Brothers, I remember if I had a second player, then I could get a little bit further. It kind of like gave me that much more confidence, and I could see the mistakes that they made to learn from. And it's the exact same methodology. Now, the teamwork that's necessary, especially with DAOs, is just flourishing through the already existing nature of gamers. We were taught to beat the giant boss, you're going to have a team of 6 or 20 or 25 or 30. And so we would form those teams. We would have to go through and talk to each other and coordinate and strategize and come up with some very deep planning to figure out how to exactly to defeat these bosses. And that translates exactly to what's happening now, and has us in a position where we're able to coordinate. We're able to put together very long-term strategies that allow us to synchronize our group effort and overcome nearly anything.
That's amazing. That is really an incredible outlook as to. So if we think very often in our gaming, well, we think in terms of games as being competitive, where there is a singular winner. And if we look at the NFL, that's, you do tend to look at a team that's going to win the Super Bowl. But truly, I don't know, there's 32 or 34 teams, I'm not sure. They're actually all there to make the actual league good, so that people actually care about the Super Bowl. And now, for those who think that now I go to conspiracy theory ways, one of the things that I just heard about beating the big beast at the end there is truly the gamers have been able to figure out how to be cooperative, or what I've heard is termed as co-opetition, right? Is where they're actually coming together to beat the big beast. And I know people don't like to hear this, but the big beast is fiat currency in many ways, and centralized technology. Because frankly, like, one of the things technology is supposed to do is to empower humanity and to empower individuals. But we keep seeing this kind of power dynamic that's being taken from individuals. But what I just heard from you, and this is just really, really wonderful, is that over the past 20 years, the gamers have been preparing to win this battle that's in front of us right now. and it's pretty incredible and pretty dynamic, and it's something that I don't think I'd ever heard put that way.
Honestly, it's nothing that we could have guessed. It's nothing that could have been foreseen, in my opinion. I mean, anyone that can say otherwise is either has premonitions or is possibly lying, because it wasn't something that was obvious. Truth be told, cards on the table, I had not bought my first cryptocurrency until April of this year because I didn't see a point behind it. I didn't fully understand it, but I absolutely unequivocally understand gaming. And the instant that I realized that NFTs were plugged into video games, it just made perfect sense. So then the next logical step for me was, oh, okay, well, I need this crypto for the utility in this game. Crypto as a utility strikes me as a genius move. It's absolutely applicable in so many different situations. Crypto as a storehouse of wealth, it's a little beyond me. You know, I'd spent most of my life not really planning to invest in anything ever. So this has been as much of a surprise to me as it sounds like it might be to most.
I definitely think so. So it's very, it actually is very kind of interesting, and I want to jump off there and just kind of bring in Sierra at this point, because and we are doing, this is normally where we do talk about the Bills thing here, and this week we actually saw the Bills sort of, okay, they didn't win, right? They've been losing. And I do like to look at what's going on in the crypto world right now. So, William, a little bit of background. Tim and I were both computer programmers in the U.S. Air Force back in the early 90s through 95, 94. I was 94, he was 95. So we got an early look at technology. We got an early look at the internet, and we've really been following it for years. And then I ended up, through a series of events, I ended up in banking. So when I really started understanding, I mean, my background is finance, like the Series 763 Wall Street type, working on top of, helping out there with technology. And once I really understood our banking system, I tell people all the time, I literally started getting sick. I started not liking the person I saw in the mirror. I started questioning how I could participate in what was actually going on. Right. And so I went through a period of life where I completely felt defeated and like I had to remake myself. So now, again, to bring us back to being a Bills fan, is that we're so used to actually being defeated that sometimes it just becomes comfortable and you live with it. But that's not where we are. We're actually now at a point where, regardless of what the world is saying about cryptocurrency, no matter what the markets are doing, because there's a concerted effort to make cryptocurrency another stock market, and that's not right at all. People have to kind of lose that mentality and fine, you can go play the game and make some money. And I understand that human behavior drives economics and you can find the patterns and make money. Good, go do that. But if you stop and if you actually hold on to this idea that it's just another stock, you're missing the point. And in fact, when we see the games and the market manipulation that's going on right now, it does start to feel sometimes like, oh, wait a second, we might be beat. But I have a conversation with you and I start to think no, this is truly the team, the cooperation team, the team we don't even know about, coming together to kind of win the game. And this is where I love to now turn things over to Sierra and just randomness and say, okay, we saw a team in the Buffalo Bills. And again, I want to talk about what it takes to encourage progress, because very often, I'm sure not everything was easy for William in this transition of, I don't even know what you did before all of this, but I know that reading what I've read on this is your best year and life. You just had a new daughter and you have a new home business. And I'm sure none of that was easy. And there were times that things got questionable. What am I really doing here? And how am I going to get through this? And Sierra, I'm going to come through here and kind of set her up here. So Sierra is actually a psychological operations officer for the Army. She gets the idea of what you have to do to help motivate a population toward better efforts and whatnot. And though we see a losing record going on with the Buffalo Bills right now, what we saw in this game about Tampa Bay was a team that was being beat, and the scoreboard still showed them as losing, but they actually came out winners in their own minds. And now we've lost Sierra again. And now she's gone.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have.
It's
All right, she's having a hard time staying connected today, and I'm having a hard time trying to weave that in and out as she's doing. So we may not go too much longer on the Buffalo Bills thing. She lives down in North Carolina, and she does have these kind of weird issues on occasion. But so, anyways, while she's gone, you've built a team. Are these all now your business? Do you have employees? Is everybody independent contractors? Are you building your business as a DAO? And what's it take to keep your team focused on the big win?
I built my team. I started my LLC, Cryptech BCI, that's Crypto Technology Blockchain Innovations, back in April 1st of this year as a prank. But it's as a serious intention. I just started it on April 1st as a prank, just so that I could convince people that it wasn't real. But I brought in the people closest to me, the people that I knew, first of all, would be extremely adept at gaming, but also the people that I knew that I could trust to do what I asked autonomously, because a lot of the stuff they do from home. A lot of the stuff can be done from home. You know, we have an office located in the Esports Stadium Arlington in Arlington, Texas, but a lot of the time we don't necessarily have to meet there. You know, a majority of our game, actually, it would kind of be counterintuitive to try to force everybody to meet there every day. So a majority of the work is just done from home remotely, and you know, a lot of it's R&D. There's a whole lot of research and development necessary to make sure that we know what we're talking about and can give accurate assessments to our clients to make sure that they're getting the best out of their gameplay or the most out of their time.
So, okay, and now Sierra's back. Sierra, I'm going to probably not be able to go too deep into the Buffalo Bill stuff, but while William is here, I would like to share with him Shmub. So we're trying our technology. We have a low-code platform that we're changing over to write to the blockchain. So we'll basically be able to write the data infrastructure of any let's say any data technology needs. Tim can speak better to this, but we can write it in like no time at all, because we've created software that actually writes the code to manage data. And we're doing that to mediate it across the platform, or across environments, whether it's chain or cloud. So we're going to mediate between chain and cloud environments, and then I'll ultimately be able to do it to multiple chains. We're beginning with BSV because of some speed and some there's reasons that we chose BSV. Then we're going to look at some other blockchains. But the idea is because that interoperability is very important. Now, all of that to say, one of the first things we never planned to do was to get into gaming. But now you kind of see that this is an absolutely important piece to the blockchain world and the metaverse world, that we're starting to develop our most simple version of games. And to us, that kind of starts to look like card games, because and we're creating NFTs to go around this, and it'll build into something greater. But so Sierra, like early on, trying to help her understand NFTs and what this would look like and how you'd have some fun, she came up with this idea, and she called it, we titled it Shmub. And it was basically people just sharing videos with one another, making a mess, just having fun, intentionally making a mess, and creating this little social environment. And then you could kind of have teams voting on it, and who made the biggest mess, whose was the most fun, and award them coins, so that it could be an educational means of teaching about blockchain and currency, right? Without having to actually understand how to get into a metaverse and all the other pieces of it. It would literally just be sharing a video like you're used to doing around a specific theme, and then we build on from there. But Sierra, William has a background in like really what makes a game engaging for people. So William, would you mind sharing real quick, like what you think are important, the 2 or 3 things that are most important in helping a game and helping bring people back to a game?
I almost feel like you've done a little bit of research. I actually have what I call the play to earn Triforce. That's the 3 most important elements that you want to look for or try to instill in whatever game you're going to consider on the blockchain. Those include fun. That's the gameplay mechanics. You know, how much fun can be had with this game? What is the repetitive loop the hooking gameplay loop that keeps people coming back again and again. If that's there, then players will stick around. But a lot of people right now are looking at this stuff as an investment. So something that you have to keep in mind is those investors, they're not going to stay. They're not going to be what keeps those projects up and running. What's going to keep those projects up and running? Gamers. Gamers are going to be the ones that come in and day out and keep playing the game and keep the economy within the game running. So fun is vital. It's the most important, in my opinion. Secondly, tokenomics. How can you engage with those play to earn mechanics? How exactly have the developers designed the token structure? Where is it going? What are the allocations? How is it spent? Utility is extremely important. And the more utility they can squeeze into a token, the better. Two perfect examples, one you've already mentioned, DAO, or another one would be airdrops. Either of those two involved in a project are usually a good indicator. And third, and almost as important as the other two, community. You want to see a thriving community behind the game, which is also a very difficult aspect to judge because a lot of times, like you'll see with just any project on the blockchain or any crypto in general, as soon as someone buys it and owns it, well, then they become an advertiser for it because the more people that buy into it, the more money they're going to make. So ultimately, what you're looking for in that circumstance is going to be what exact social elements are included in this game. Do they have a Facebook? Do they have a Twitter? Do they have a Discord? Look at those places. Go and see how the people are treating each other, how they're talking to one another, how excited they are for the gameplay. What are their worries? When you can see them interacting with each other positively and having fun just in the social media elements that are surrounding the game itself, then you know the community is going to stay because the community that plays together stays together. And then the only other element that I feel is necessary to mention is if I'm looking at a project and I don't find a list of all the devs' names and information, and I don't necessarily mean their street addresses, but if the devs don't dox, I don't buy. I'm not going to be interested in any project that doesn't completely make known publicly all of their development team, because a development team that tries to stay anonymous is somewhat indicative of a rug pull. Now, I won't say that it always is. I'm not trying to defame any games in particular, but I'm just saying, to me, that's indicative of not necessarily taking their community as seriously as they should.
Yeah, I think that those are good things. Now, Sierra, and I'm sorry, like you've been coming in and out, and I don't even know if you can hear us because sometimes I think okay, you can hear us. So I'm sorry that we haven't had our time to do our little bills thing tonight, but I don't want to like let the whole night go without having a little bit of update on the bills. I want to get your thoughts on the game and, you know, really some takeaways. What are you thinking? Where's your head this week?
I'm not even thinking about the bills right now. I'm just thinking about the metaverse, and like I'm not quite sure what makes it so different from I don't know what I'm hearing right now. Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I don't know what makes it so different from when like we used to play like Call of Duty World at War and would play like free for all or something. And the only difference it sounds like is that the currency that's being used for purchasing new weapons on Call of Duty or something, or purchasing new maps to play Nazi zombies is crypto, as opposed to me going to like Target to buy a PS4 gift card to then translate into whatever I decide to use it for, because I'm not huge into gaming. I play some video games, but I mean I'm not a huge gamer. So I'm just like trying to figure out like I without it being too technical, I understand like that I can go into whatever game you want to call it. I don't know, any game, and I can purchase space, like this like space, but what's the value of I'm confused about like what the value of this like non-tangible spaces in the metaverse. That's, and you know what, and I think it always comes back to like, what does someone value? I'm always here to be like the naysayer of crypto. I don't know if that's the right way. Maybe I'm just
The grounded
uninformed.
one, the grounded one.
Just
And it
like
seems to me like that
uninformed.
makes you guys an excellent team.
So just like the uninformed is my best way to pull it. But also like I always have to have stuff like dumbed down to my level because I'm not technical at all. I do not you start talking like technical words to me, I gloss over and I'm like, okay, cool, like got it. So
Okay, let me
Yeah.
propose a scenario to you. Okay, so you're playing World of Warcraft. Are you familiar?
I know the game. I've never played, but I know what it is.
So suppose you play World of Warcraft and you play for a long time and you work really hard and you win this prize, the sword of the gods. We'll stick with what we know. So you've won the sword of the gods and that's yours. Well, on the blockchain or in any metaverse, that would be an NFT that potentially could be minted
Right.
as an NFT or would already be. So that doesn't just mean that you got it in that game. That means that you got it in real life. That goes into your crypto wallet that's on your
Mhm.
phone, not in the game, not connected to the game in any way. That is your property. That's your digital asset. Now, try to untether from the whole it's not tangible part. Because have you ever touched a dinosaur? Have you ever touched
No,
a meteor?
I get that. And
Okay, so that those things aren't tangible in any way we can touch or hold, but we know them as concepts to have existed or be something. We do acknowledge they are a thing.
Yeah.
So the sword is a thing, right? Now imagine that Call of Duty Part 75 is coming out next week, and they announced
Mhm.
this big, huge zombies event. And if you kill 1 million zombies, they're going to pay you in whatever could COD coin or whatever crypto they've adopted, you know? Now, the coins, that's just a tiny piece of the puzzle. The fact
Mhm.
that the coins can be used in the game to buy goods and services, that's a deeper piece of the puzzle. But
Mhm.
NFT integration is the true crux of this whole thing because now it's time for you to hop in there and try to take out 1 million zombies. The best anybody can do is like 700,000, except you've got the sword of the gods. So now the
Yeah.
time that you invested in that other game will pay you now in this different one. Because previously we were looking at walled gardens, that wasn't even something that could happen. Before, that sword never came out of World of Warcraft. You could never even think about fighting zombies with it because there's no zombies in, well, I don't know if there's zombies in World of Warcraft, so I won't make that statement. But
Yeah.
you catch you, I think you understand my line of reasoning here. So now take it back to the other example that I made before, like each individual metaverse is going to have opportunities for in-game businesses. And
Mhm.
it's literally like had originally posited, it's up to the imagination of us, the people, when we go in there to decide how and what we're going to do with these assets, what we want. So when you ask, well, okay, you buy this virtual plot of land, but it's not tangible. What do I do with it? If I bought a real plot of land, you know what I would do with it? I can't tell you. I don't. What would you do with a real plot of land? Maybe build a house? Like, where are you going to get those supplies? All that stuff is still applicable in a metaverse. The only difference is you kind of got to suspend your disbelief just a little bit to kind of wrap your head around the fact that people even care about it at all. But what it boils down to is, and this is a scenario that I try to use often to explain or to help people understand, but Disney taught us that nostalgia is the most potent marketing tool. They bought our childhood and repackaged it and sold it to us and made tons. And now we're forever loyal to them because of it. Well, imagine you say you don't really play games that much, but I'm going to make a small wager here and guess that you might have played Super Mario Brothers. And if you played Super Mario Brothers, you just might remember the very beginning of the game with a couple of bricks and a mushroom
Mhm.
block or the little question
Yeah.
mark block. The
Mhm.
very beginning of the game, when you hit it, the mushroom comes out and you hit it. And if you grab it, you get big, right? Well,
Yep.
imagine if 1 in 100 million times that anyone in the world had hit that block, it was potentially going to come out as a 1 of 100 NFT. Now, fast forward from then till now, and all those 100 people that were lucky enough to get this super rare minted Super Mario Brothers 1 mushroom, some of those people may have unfortunately passed away. Some of them may have lost their seed phrases and wallet addresses. So that 100 isn't even 100 anymore. Now you're looking at a very, very, very finite supply of this super rare thing, compounded with years and years of nostalgia. How much do you think one of those mushrooms would go for now? Do you think people would want to buy something like that, even though it's not
Yeah.
tangible? They would. Now let's apply it to something newer like World of Warcraft. Now, I'm not familiar with the game. I don't play it too much myself, but I am familiar with the basics of it. And I do know that there's like something of a little bit of a two factions that are fighting against each other constantly. And I believe one is the Horde and one is the Alliance. Well, imagine if the capital city from the game for one side, like the Alliance, if that was a property that could be bought. Do you think people would want that intangible asset? Would that have value? And it would be valued by the people. They would say, well, I'm willing to spend X on it. Well, I'm willing to spend X plus 1. Or I'll spend X plus 2. And then it would turn into bidding until the price had been decided. And just like Beeple's $69 million piece, at some point, some high astronomical price would be decided and it would be sold, and that would establish its value.
Yeah.
Let's actually using excellent example there. I think it was Kingdom Hearts, which was Disney, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Right. So say that there was something in Kingdom Hearts, whatever that was the equivalent of the mushroom, and you had to have that thing from Kingdom Hearts to get your fast pass when you go to Disney World. Right? Now you're sitting here going like, well, now I'm going to play the game because I got to get my fast pass. Well, now okay, so whatever that thing was in Kingdom Hearts, like maybe not only does it get you a fast pass, but it gets you up in the castle at Disney World, right? But only if there was 100 of those mushrooms from Kingdom of Hearts, only 10 of those mushrooms from Kingdom of Hearts got you up into the castle. And even after they got you up in the castle, you didn't lose them. They were still in your wallet, and Disney would, from there on out, do very special things with those Kingdom Hearts pieces, those little assets. Now you went and played a game of which Disney made money while you played the game, and you also gained something, but you can now pass down those digital assets to your family that, years from now, grandchildren, great grandchildren are enjoying a cruise on the Disney ship because only one of these Kingdom Heart mushrooms survives, and your family took care of it long enough to be recognized as kings and queens of Disney.
Yeah, I love Kingdom Hearts. That's a great game.
But yeah, it is. Go ahead.
I am
excellent analogy.
the customer. I am the customer that you're referencing. So from Disney, I am the customer.
And it's just a little bit different because the only thing, okay, so we're talking about it from a gaming sense, and that's very, very real. Earlier on, William mentioned a Rolex, and Tim and I were talking about Rolexes earlier, and we were talking about the Sandbox earlier and how Snoop Dogg has bought some land over in the Sandbox. And one of the metaverses you might go to would be like right next to, you want some land next to Snoop Dogg's because he said he's going to kind of be there 50% of the time. So a whole bunch of people who want to hang out with Snoop Dogg are going to end up kind of combing around that land in the Sandbox. And if you happen to have your Sierra store there, you could literally have a store, and if one of the things that you had was that Kingdom Hearts special thing, you could show it, and you could actually just charge entry into your store so people could just see it, or you could even rent it out for a period of time. Again, assuming that Disney allowed that, but you would actually then have a store. And the way that you would get people to come into your stores in the same way that we talk about like a real estate is you're going to want to have land in the metaverse. And really, land is the right word that everybody's using, but really it's a space. It's a meta space. You're going to want to have space in the metaverse that's relevant to the people who are interested in the same kind of things that you're interested in. Then it starts to get even a little bit more like, okay, what else is going to be in the metaverse? And the answer is going to be your office building, right? Just like William was saying, it doesn't really make sense for them to drive down to Arlington every day, but it would certainly make sense if they wanted to just put on some, VR goggles and meet in a space. And while they were in that space, like they could literally walk next door and order their Starbucks. And it's either that Starbucks will be ready as they're driving home later that night, or Starbucks will be delivering it. Probably a bad idea. Their Domino's Pizza is a better example. But, they'll actually have a store that you would walk into to, buy it in the same way that today you might actually have to go to Domino's website. It's just really a whole new world of the way that we're going to be interacting with technology in the years to come. But anyways, thank you, William, for joining us. I mean, we're kind of at the end of our hour, and sorry, Sarah, we didn't really get into the bills thing tonight, but your technology was like, I wasn't sure. Sometimes you're talking and it wouldn't get your response. I wasn't sure if you heard us. And William, I hope that was tonight okay for you, and would you be willing to come back out at some point and talk some more?
This was spectacular. I love to talk shop, but I especially love to talk shop with people who are open-minded and ready to learn and have their own take on things. And you have definitely given me some things to chew on too. This has been fun.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm really glad that you joined. I mean, like I said, for us, we do this where we just invite people that are exactly like we connected online. Like, here's a guy who knows what he's talking about, and let's create those connections. Because we are new into this metaverse world, that we do have, the relationships are still where the strengths and the bonds are going to be created. While we may actually be entering into virtual worlds, the reality of life is that we still are going to want to connect with people that we can trust to, do their thing. That's kind of the important piece of the DAO there. And William, if you're actually interested at all in joining on, we now go on and we meet with a group called the Permaculture Pirates. They're putting together a blockchain project. They're fun. We'd be happy to send you a link over. And if you want to join us there on their Discord, you'd be welcome. They always welcome our guests. It's just another way that we connect people. So I will send you that link after we get off here tonight. But again, thank you so very much for joining us. And
thank you very much. Remember, no pay, no play. But if it's got NFTs, that's for me.
No pay, no play. But if it's got NFTs, that's for me. I like it. I like it. All right.